I understand that it probably hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been a really long time since we've done a live, right? And I think the reason for that is I went on this kick where I was essentially doing like a live every week. And I don't know why I went on that kick, but also I don't know why I stopped because I haven't been able to do this with you guys. And so maybe today should have been alive. It's not going to be alive because I'm obviously here talking about a soap that has been made that I'm going to talk about, in the video and all the things. I'm just saying expect the live in the next couple days, or even better, let me know down below if you want one. I will tell you what we are making today for this not live day in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 291 of 365 days of soap, and today we're putting the lime in the coconut and mixing them all up in soap form. We are making the summer soaps, or one of a few, for a drop in the ocean, and talking about basically whatever's on my mind, because we've done this pour before, and I don't really need to give you instructions on how to do it. So, I don't know, let's go to the video and talk about whatever pops into my head. Okay, so the coconut lime soap, and actually, alright, first and foremost, it's a coconut lime blend. I'm not doing anything special with the lye water. And the actual oil blend is a big bubble blend without the inclusion of palm. And so I use, 60% of the batch is equal parts coconut and babassu. So equal parts of that. And the rest is really olive oil. I mean, there's 5% of castor oil in this too, but I'm going to get the big bubble from the coconut and the babassu, and it's also going to be bar hardening. Here's the thing. I said I was going to talk about whatever, kind of popped into my mind, but actually as I was editing this, I realized I wanted to talk about the soap and specifically the pour. So kind of pay attention to the batter here. Now, the oils themselves, when I poured this, they were at about 70 degrees. So kind of thicky, and the lye solution also at about 70 degrees, so kind of cold and so I knew, or I thought, that I was going to be dealing with potential false trace, because really rather cold oils for considering the amount of solid oils that are in this batch. And so I worked the batter a little more. Also, one of the reasons why I work the batter a little more is because the particular pour that I'm doing is a drop swirl. And I remember being like, well, not an early soap maker, I guess, but in the early days of me wanting to do design type soaps, right? Which came later, like much later in my soaping journey. And like watching a video and going, well, I don't understand. I did everything in the video. I did the measurements this way, and I used your recipe, and I don't get why my soap didn't do what your soap did. Here's the thing that a lot of early soap making video people did not really explain. I mean, at least not in any of the videos I ever watched. They never really talked about the differences in trace and how that impacts the actual pour. Don't get me wrong, newer, because again, this was a long time ago, and newer soap tubers do that. And, you know, the people that come to mind are, well, Holly Kepiamera. I swear I will never get her name right. And I Dream in Soap. And another one that I'm totally going to forget. I am forgetting. But she's delightful too. They do now explain the importance of, you know, the thickness of the batter. But when I was first starting out trying to figure out these different types of pours, nobody ever really talked to me about that. And I know that I have talked about that a lot on the channel, but it might be time for a refresh. And so, like I said, whatever's popping into my mind right now happens to be talking about the soap batter and why it's actually good that the soap batter is a little bit thicker for this particular pour. Because this particular pour is a drop swirl, and one of the important things that you actually need in a drop swirl is a thicker batter. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it means like a somewhere between a thin trace and a medium trace. So let's just go ahead and say a medium trace. Why is that important? Well, if your soap batter is too thin, what you're going to end up with is these particular colors that I have sectioned out to, you know, run the mold with on just one side of the mold, and the colors just overlapping each other for however many times I want to layer the colors. And then I will add the rest of the white to the other side of the mold and put in a secondary swirl on the other side. If the batter is too thin, both the base color and the colors that you are, you know, using to make your actual design, it's just going to end up with, you know, swirls, which are delightful. Don't get me wrong. That's still a beautiful bar of soap with just swirls. But if you're looking for a drop swirl, you really do need your batter to have some heft, you know? And so stirring it a little bit longer with your emulsion stick or what have you, or using a, you know, I don't actually recommend anybody ever using a fragrance that accelerates. But, you know, in this case, if you're a little bit more of a seasoned soap maker and you know how much it's going to accelerate, then yeah, go for it. If it's going to end up ricing, well, then that leads to different problems entirely. Point is, a thicker soap batter for something like this is actually a good idea. And you're going to see this play out and just how true that is literally tomorrow when I pour, well, basically the exact same technique, but with a much thinner soap batter. And in one instance, I get just a beautiful, swirly, feathery, gorgeous, you know, bar of swirls. And in the other instance, this instance, I get drop swirls. And so the weight of your batter, the thickness of your batter, it totally matters. And I have been, you know, a huge proponent on this channel of stop at emulsion. Stop at emulsion. But the stop at emulsion, put your colors in, put your scents in. It gives you plenty of working time and you can do almost anything with the batter. But the almost anything, the things that you can't do with a very thin batter, are drop swirls and layers, really. And so that makes it complicated. So in a lot of instances, you know, me telling you to just soap to emulsion, just learn what emulsion is, stop there, put your colors in, put your scents in, give yourself plenty of working time to do your complicated swirls and all the jazz. While in a lot of cases that is true, in something like this, like with the drop swirl design or a teardrop or again, layers, a thicker soap batter is actually good. And so, I mean, I guess we're going to see, I mean, we're obviously going to see what that means in this particular, soap batter. But then I'm going to show you tomorrow in real time. Well, I guess not in real time. You get it. The exact same pour, just with a much more fluid, a much thinner soap batter, and what that does to the overall design. And it changes quite drastically. Now, what I'm doing here is also something I usually cut out of all of the videos, and that's called scraping out all of my containers to, put the pretty top on the soap. I usually cut this out of the video because it's kind of a tedious process and nobody likes doing it. Therefore, why would anybody like watching it? But everybody likes watching the skewering part because it's gorgeous. This will be C-popped and gelled, and let's check out the internal drop swirls. Gotta tell you, I love that top though. Now again, C-pop and gel, and you can see some cracking in the middle of the bar there. It was possibly overheated, but no big deal. I pull all of my soaps out of the molds and cut them within 12 to 24 hours. And so they're still very, very soft, so you can totally kind of fix any imperfections on the tops and or sides, which is great. But this is what we're doing. This is a lime in the coconut soap. And so we wanted to give the illusion of a lime and or a coconut, both of which are roundy in nature with this particular design. And there it is. And that's a drop swirl. Now, you could make your drop swirls even more pronounced if your batter was even a little bit thicker than what I poured this at. And, also adding more of the base color to the actual mold before you started layering in your accent colors. But that's basically it. It has more to do with the actual thickness of the soap batter than it does whatever technique that you're watching somebody, do. Obviously, a thick batter, like fudge or even cake batter, it's not going to be a great consistency for something like this. But, as people like to explain, trace, like a thin pudding, or a pancake batter, which we've talked about before. That's very confusing to me. So let's go with a thin pudding. That consistency will allow all of these colors to kind of build on each other and create, a drop, a teardrop, a drop swirl, what have you. If your batter is too thin, you are not going to achieve those results. And so, again, I find it very interesting that, I said I was going to talk about whatever I wanted to, whenever it came on in my mind. And I love it for all of us that, soap actually came to my mind for this particular day. So that's day 291, the coconut lime soap. If this week feels a little bit scatterbrained for me, more so than normal, that's because it is. And some days are just going to be like that. And I have a lot of other things on my brain. And those things are called all the crap that I have to do in the house because, once Mr. Soap and Clay stops building stuff, my job begins. And my job is the drywall and then the taping and the mudding of the drywall and the painting and it's a lot. And so that's kind of where my brain has been this week. But, you're still getting cool recipes and cool all kinds of stuff as a result. It's just sometimes you're just going to hear me talk about whatever in a soap video. If you like the soaps, you can totally find them at a dropintheoceanshop.com. As I said, part of her summer line. They've been some of her best sellers for the past 3 years at this point. So they're definitely delightful, smell great, look great. They're all awesome. Go check them out. If you are interested in seeing, what else we do on this crazy soapy journey, subscribe. That would be awesome. Oh, I'm supposed to tell you guys something about, I have a membership button now too. So if you want to do that, cool. That gives you access to the Discord. That gives you access to members only live chats. That gives you access to these cool soap things that we're going to be doing soon. So, if you want to be a member and support the channel that way, go ahead, do the thing. Thank you. For everybody that has subscribed, whether or not you've become a member, doesn't really matter. You are Sudzers, and I thank you for being here, regardless of your membership status. Just thank you. Thank you for taking me along for a piece of your day every day and being a part of mine. I appreciate you guys very, very much. I'm out of here for today. Aforementioned house things still need to be done, but I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.